This is 5 on 20 News, where the news is bad, but the newscasters are bougie. With Alex Cack
and Richard Gary, it's Monday, April 3rd, and we're coming to you live from the Creative Tucson studio in downtown Tucson. First, let's talk local headlines.
If you haven't stocked up on Samoas yet, you've run out of time. Girl Scout cookie season has come to a close. And of the Southern Arizona Scouts who have spent the last few months staked out in front of your favorite grocery stores slanging sugar bombs, one local teen has topped the list. That's 13-year-old Tucsonan Adriana Chavez, and she sold 4,336 boxes of cookies this year, beating out all other competitors in the region. Adriana credits her mother and Scout leader Suzette Chavez for helping her get permission to sell in front of as many businesses as she did, and for encouraging her along the way. Chavez has spent the last 7 years on Southern Arizona's top 10 cookie seller list, but 2017 marks her first year at the #1 spot. Southern Arizona Girl Scouts moved a grand total of 850,432 boxes of cookies, including 21,454 boxes that were sent to troops stationed abroad as part of the Cookies for Military program. Chavez hopes her experience selling Girl Scout cookies will help her find success with a series of different pyramid schemes when she grows up.
9, 32, 36, 44, 65, with a Powerball number of 1 and a Power Play number of 3. Somewhere in Arizona, there is a lottery ticket with those numbers on it, and the owner of the ticket is yet to claim the prize. The ticket was purchased at the Scenic General Store in Littlefield, near Nevada and the Utah state lines earlier this week, marking the first winning Powerball jackpot ticket to be purchased in Arizona in nearly 5 years. The winner has 180 days from April 1st to claim their $60 million prize. Given the timing of the drawing, it's possible the winner thought the announcement was an April Fool's prank. More likely, the ticket was stuffed into a glove compartment or a back pocket and forgotten about because no sane person expects to win the lottery. We here at 5 on 20 suggest you be very nice to any relatives you have in the Littlefield area just in case.
A pride parade at the Phoenix Pride Festival came to a screeching halt on Sunday when a group of protesters blocked its path. Oddly enough, these protesters weren't evangelical Christians or right-wing Republicans. The protesters turned out to be members of the LGBTQ community themselves. Members of the group Queer Trans Pueblo used the parade as an opportunity to pressure the Phoenix Pride organization to use its influence to protect undocumented LGBTQ immigrants. According to the Williams Institute at UCLA, there are an estimated 267,000 undocumented members of the LGBTQ community. In addition to the standard Orwellian nightmares cisgendered heteronormative immigrants must face, trans immigrants get the added bonus of being more likely to be victims of sexual assault and harassment and less likely to win their asylum cases if they're detained. Shortly after the parade was stopped, protesters voluntarily moved out of its path, and the day's events went on as planned. No one was hurt or arrested during the protest.
Senator John McCain is currently seeking a presidential pardon for Jack Johnson, not the musician whose only crime is stealing the hearts of mellow rock aficionados too young to care about Dave Matthews, but the early 20th century boxer who was sentenced to prison for an equally innocuous crime. This Jack Johnson was the first black heavyweight boxing champion before being jailed in 1912 for dating a white woman. As a former boxer himself, McCain was drawn to Johnson's story from a young age and has spent much of his political career seeking a pardon for the trailblazing boxer who paved the way for future black athletes to follow. McCain approached both George W. Bush and Barack Obama on Johnson's behalf during their reigns as president to no avail. The Arizona senator continues to seek vindication for the man whose story inspired the Broadway production and motion picture adaptation titled The Great White Hope. Given Trump's proclivity for surrounding himself with bigots, it's unlikely the Great Orange Dope will be more lenient towards Johnson than the previous presidents. McCain has made it clear he will not be deterred, stating, quote, "I promise you this, I will not give up until Jack Johnson is pardoned. Not just because of Jack Johnson, but because of the reputation of an era where people were discriminated against and harmed, and sometimes lynched because of the color of their skin. Good luck, Mr. McCain. While you're at it, maybe you could start being a little nicer to people of color who aren't professional athletes and haven't been dead for 70 years.
But it looks like John McCain is slowly transforming into a Democrat in his old age. The Arizona senator warned that Arizona could experience dire consequences if the U.S. were cut off trade with Mexico. On a podcast with former Obama aide David Axelrod, McCain pointed out that Mexico does more trade with Arizona than they do with Spain, and the state of Sonora is particularly important. He said that there would be a serious and deep recession and that there are a couple 100,000 jobs that are directly related to trade with Mexico. The interview came on the same day that Mexico revealed that they may cease importing corn from the U.S. As our biggest importer of corn, this would be devastating for U.S. farmers, especially those in the Midwest who depend on Mexico's purchases. If McCain also said that if we will keep ruining the environment along the border, then Mexico could eventually elect a far-left president who would likely be less friendly to the United States. On the podcast, he also said there needs to be serious immigration reform to deal with the 11 million undocumented people who are currently in the country. Axelrod asked McCain about the president's feud with the press, and McCain stated that while sometimes he hates the press too, the fact is that without a legitimate press and respect for media, then the real and important part of the press is destroyed. He touched on the issue of fake news by stating that he was concerned about Americans receiving unbiased, objective views in the news. At the end of the interview, McCain called for universal health care and an abolishment of the capitalist system before tearing off his shirt, putting his pair of Birkenstocks on the desk, and lighting up a big fat joint.
A recent report found that Arizona is among the best states to retire in the United States. The website Bankrate analyzed all 50 states for factors like cost of living, healthcare quality, crime, taxes, other stuff too. Arizona ended up finishing 12th overall, with weather being the best quality, coming in second only to California. The state's worst category, culture, where it fell to 39th place. In terms of cost of living, healthcare, taxes, and crime, Arizona was pretty middle of the road, averaging in the 20s. New Hampshire came out on top for the best state to retire. Alaska came in last place, mostly due to cost of living and weather. Arizona is already shooting for the top spot next year by hosting the nation's first diagnosis murder convention in Oro Valley, erecting a statue of Bob Hope, piloting a B-17 bomber in Paradise Valley.
Then I wanted to take a moment to talk about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we're undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We're going to give you the news as we see it, and we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves, so join us. Do it, and do it now. You can email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event we should cover, or have any news tips for us, then shoot us an email, again, at info@creativetucson.org. We're here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of view. So don't be strangers. And now in national and international news.
On Wednesday, Connecticut's Joint Judiciary Committee passed a bill that will allow police to use weaponized drones. This comes as part of Connecticut lawmakers' most recent attempt to regulate drone usage, which is something they've been trying to do since 2015 when a Central Connecticut State University student fitted one drone with a handgun and another with a flamethrower. HB 7260's original intent was to prevent people from weaponizing drones, but the only way to get it passed out of committee was to add a provision allowing police to do the very thing the bill was trying to prevent. According to the Judiciary Committee co-chair William Tong, this move will improve public safety. Sure, strap a shotgun to a remote-controlled toy and put it in the hands of people who routinely abuse the arsenal they already have. I feel safer already. The ACLU of Connecticut and the Connecticut NAACP are working to change the bill before it is voted on by the state's House of Representatives.
And ICE is in hot water over a lawsuit against their Chicago office. The putative class action suit alleges that detainees are regularly kept longer than the 48-hour maximum, putting ICE Chicago in violation of federal immigration law and the Fourth Amendment. The plaintiff in the case is Ronnie Chavez Aguilar. Aguilar was arrested in Kentucky on drug charges and sentenced to 2 weeks in jail after a guilty plea. Unfortunately for him, ICE thought he was an undocumented immigrant and had him transferred to the Boone County Jail, where they have space reserved for people facing deportation. Now remember that 48-hour maximum? Well, Aguilar was held closer to 480 hours, nearly 3 weeks without ever facing a judge, despite the fact that he is a U.S. citizen. According to Aguilar's representative, Charles Roth, Aguilar informed ICE officials of this fact. They told him he should tell it to the judge. Aguilar's situation is not unique. President Trump's desire to deport every illegal immigrant in the country has led to an overwhelming number of deportation cases. Immigration courts simply don't have the time or the resources to process everyone in a timely manner. And lawsuits like this may serve to slow the Trump administration's appetite for further deportation. They're more likely to lead to a string of angry tweets from the president and an effort to double down on the same failing policy. You know, just standard Trump stuff.
A federal judge has rejected an argument from Donald Trump that defended his free speech in allegedly causing a riot during his campaign in Louisville, Kentucky. Trump is accused of inciting a riot by telling the crowd to, quote, "Get him out of here," referring to protesters who got inside one of his rallies in March of 2016. The 3 protesters, 2 women and 1 man, brought the charges against the president. Trump's lawyers tried to get the lawsuit dismissed by claiming that Trump didn't intend for his supporters to use force. The protesters say that they were shoved and punched by the audience after Trump uttered those words, with much of the event caught on video. Jude David J. Hale of Louisville ruled Friday that the suit against Trump can proceed. Yes, that's right. We're getting to see our president get sued for inciting a riot. This just gets more interesting every day. Judge Hale found that there were enough facts to support the protesters' allegations and that their injuries were, quote, direct and proximate result of Trump's words. Hale wrote in an argument that it's plausible that Trump's direction to get him out of here advocated the use of force. Trump says that he was trying to develop a catchphrase and was intending it to mean getting illegal immigrants out of the country. 2 Trump supporters are also named in the suit, including Alvin Bamberger, a member of the Korean War Veterans Association, and Matthew Heimbach, leader of the white supremacist group, the Traditional Youth Network. Bamberger has expressed regret for being caught up in the frenzy of the rally. Not so much for Heimbach, who is considered one of the leading figures of the new generation of hate groups, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Heimbach is also being considered for a White House aide position after Steve Bannon suffers his inevitable heart attack and Steve Miller gets caught peeping in the women's restroom of a local mall.
Women in the United Kingdom are up in arms over what's being done with the revenue from a 5% tax on feminine sanitary products. One of the few positive aspects of Brexit is the fact that the UK will no longer be subject to the European Union value-added tax. Due to the pressure from groups like Stop Taxing Periods, then-Chancellor George Osborne put a plan in motion to make feminine products exempt. But he did not stop there. Osborne promised to redistribute the revenue gained by holding women's biology hostage in the form of donations to women's charities. When the government announced the 70 organizations that would be splitting the £12 million fund, they failed to mention one charity that just so happened to receive one of the biggest slices of the pie. That was anti-abortion group Life, and they received £250,000 from the fund. The controversial group received more than groups like the End Violence Against Women Coalition or the Women's Rape and Sexual Abuse Center for Cornwall. Labour MP Paula Sherriff is not amused, saying, quote, "It will seem bitterly ironic to many women that if we are taxed for our biology, only for the government to hand over that money to organizations that don't even believe we should have control over our own bodies, especially with so many are left without basic sanitary protection." Life has a reputation for providing misinformation to young pregnant women, such as linking abortion to everything from breast cancer and complications in future pregnancies to mental illness and suicide. Despite their factually inaccurate and manipulative practices, the group was added to the government's sexual health form in 2011. The tampon tax will continue until the next year when the UK and the EU finally separate their DVD collection and decide who gets custody of the cat. No word yet on whether Life will be a recipient of any more tampon tax funds. Meanwhile, in America, tampons are a taxable item in all but 5 states that have a sales tax. Rich?
An explosion struck a subway in St. Petersburg, Russia earlier this morning, killing 11 and wounding at least 37. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said on Facebook that the bombing was a terrorist act, but authorities are searching to see if there was another cause. So far, no terrorist group has taken responsibility for the attack. There was another bomb found in a different subway, but police were able to disarm the bomb without an explosion. The St. Petersburg subway system was shut down for the day, and President Vladimir Putin said he would do everything possible to find out who was responsible for the attack. So far, the FSB Russia security service thinks it could be one of 2 suspects. One possibility is an ISIS-inspired group that are angered by Russian airstrikes in Syria. The second possibility is a Chechen separatists who have been fighting the Russian government for the past 2 decades. There's also the possibility that it's a combination of both, since about 7,000 Russians have traveled to Syria to fight alongside extremist groups. This is the 3rd attack on Russia's transportation system since 2010, when 38 people were killed in a double suicide bombing on the Moscow metro. A year later, 27 were killed and 130 injured in a bombing on a high-speed train traveling from Moscow, St. Petersburg. Both attacks were claimed by Islamist groups.
A regional Mexican newspaper is suspending its operations to protest violence against journalists. The paper, Norte de Ciudad, said in an editorial that yesterday's edition would be its last, although it will still operate online. The move was in response to the killing of Miroslava Breach, a Norte journalist who was murdered last month in Chihuahua City. Breach is one of 3 Mexican journalists who were killed in March. Breach had been reporting on the organized crime connections between politicians there in Chihuahua, along with another newspaper, La Jornada, which is based in Mexico City. She was shot 8 times in her car, outside her home, while one of her children was in the car. Although they, luckily, were not hurt. After the shooting, the gunman left a note that read, "For being a loudmouth." In the Sunday editorial, the Norte's editor, Oscar Cantu, said that, quote, "There are neither the guarantees nor the security to exercise critical, counterbalanced journalism." He then wrote that, quote, "I'm not prepared to pay for any more of my collaborators to pay it, nor am I prepared to pay it either." According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, there have been 38 journalists killed in Mexico since 1992 because of their work. The group also said that 50 more journalists were killed during that period, but the motives were less clear. Mexican President Nieto said that the issue is fake news and asked that the country get back to talking about the border wall. Donald Trump also placed a call to Nieto to ask him how his friend Jim could hypothetically get rid of journalists who were saying bad things about him. This was Alex Kack.
And I'm Rich Garrett for 5 on 20 News. Next, Mexican Hola Muchachos. We'll see what he has to say.
Hola, muchachos. This is El Nuzador. Sorry, excuse me. Hola, muchachos. This is El Nuzador, and you're watching Botchamania. What's that? Okay? No, it's not no. Well, I'm going to have to do that again. We're live, pal? You're watching Creative Tucson, 5 on 20, where the news isn't fake, it's predetermined. I'm El Nuzador with your top stories off the top rope as we take a look back at the events from this weekend's ultimate thrill ride, WrestleMania, or how it's referred to in some households, Wrestling Christmas. This is not meant to offend, as we would also like to take a 5 count to acknowledge Wrestling Hanukkah and the less celebrated Wrestling Kwanzaa. To avoid future confusion with analogies, December is being deemed Holiday Mania beginning later this year. First, here's the scoop slam on what WrestleMania is for you non-enlightened humanoids out there. There seems to be some confusion that this reporter will clear up right now. WrestleMania is the showcase of the immortals, the culmination of a year's worth of WWE television and stories. It's both the beginning and end of the figurative season fused together in one mega-packed night. This is unlike when wrestling simply rolls into town and is at the local sports arena. You may hear some slack-jawed townie tell you that WrestleMania is in town at the TCC on some odd day in October, and this reporter will clear the air about that right now. And it is your duty to do this as well as a real fanatic of the product. When you are confronted with this situation, simply goozle the throat of this absent-minded jabroni, and with an abrupt seriousness that borders on madness, you simply look the person in the eyes, grit your teeth, and spit and say, "Mom, WrestleMania is not in town, wrestling is in town." Remind them wrestling is happening everywhere, every weekend, somewhere. In the minds of dreaming children, in the pools of dating frat boys, and in the hearts of disabled pets. WrestleMania is magic. You can then finish the conversation with your still goozled mother by choke-slamming her through a table just when she gets the message. But be aware, her tag team partner, Dad, may be lurking around the corner with the belt, if you catch my drift. Sunday dinners at the Nuzador home were always exciting, but enough childhood trauma, as me padre called it, training. Let's get on to the action because I've got your headlines in a headlock. Let's go to the matches. But before we go to the matches, the wrestling weekend kicked off in classic WrestleMania fashion with the annual tradition of WrestleMan heritage, that is the WWE Hall of Fame. Shocks and surprises included the return of Eric Bischoff to induct Diamond Dallas Page with a bang. And even more shocking was the appearance of one James E. Cornette, returning to induct the Rock and Roll Express. Corny as he is known to his enemies, has not been seen on WWE television in years and can usually be found on the internet burying the product like The Undertaker buries WrestleMania opponents. More on that story later. The Hall of Fame culminated in the addition of walking thumb and Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. Angle's induction into the Hall of Fame is well-deserved and almost overdue. But wrestling fans around the world can agree that it's good to have Angle back home. It's true. It's damn true. Other notable entrants to the Hall of Fame class of 2017 were the Glamazon Beth Phoenix and longtime SmackDown GM and co-star of WWE Ride Along's pilot episode with The Undertaker, Teddy Long. Buckle up, Teddy. You're in the Hall of Fame. The legendary Rick Rude was posthumously inducted and his family accepted on his behalf, reminding the crowd of fat, out of shape, Orlando sweat hogs to keep the noise down as we imagine their father taking his robe off and gyrating in heaven with an image of Mary airbrushed on his tights to a chorus of angels. It was truly a beautiful moment. The festivities continued Saturday night, and that's when the action of WrestleMania weekend truly began. NXT invited us into their home with NXT TakeOver Orlando. Emanating from Orlando, and the brand served up a Thanksgiving-sized feast, Hold the Gobbledygooker. A highlight of the event included the unveiling of brand new title belts across the board of the entire division. On a night unlike a Thanksgiving aftermath, every belt stayed buckled and each champion successfully defended the gold around their waist. except that is for the reigning tag team champions, the Authors of Pain, who carry the belts on their shoulders because each man is the size of a streetcar. A frontrunner for Match of the Year was in fact the tag team triple threat elimination match between the reigning NXT tag team champs, the Authors of Pain, who would defeat the teams of DIY of Ciampa and Gargano and the Revival, Dawson and Wilder, in tremendous hard-hitting fashion. What seemed like an actual demolition derby of humanity at times, the Authors of Pain would prove too large to topple as the daring double-team maneuvers between tag team rivals DIY and the Revival would make for many OMG moments, but ultimately keep the gold over the shoulders of the Authors of Pain, who seem to have written the book on dominance and destruction of the tag team division with a foreword by Paul Ellering. Other victors of the evening included Sanity, Asuka successfully eclipsing Ember Moon for the NXT Women's Championship, and Bobby Roode continuing his glorious domination over the division by defeating Shinsuke Nakamura in a tremendous battle. Expect to see Shinsuke making his debut to the main roster soon, perhaps even as soon as tonight. Now it's on to the main attraction. Put that cigarette out! Now it's on to the main attraction of the weekend, WrestleMania, a 6-hour-long event filled with pre-show analysis, musical acts, and more fireworks than a Chinese New Year. We saw the King of the Cruiserweights Neville defeat a double Austin Aries. Mojo Rawley won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal with the help of Ron Gronkowski, who is a famous sports ball player of some sort. And Dean Ambrose successfully defended his Intercontinental Championship against Baron Corbin. And this was all on the pre-show. Unbelievable. The night began in exciting fashion as... What's that? How did the night begin? You even showed them how the night began. We couldn't afford the footage. Oh, no, all right. Do it, just, okay. The night began. Oh, WrestleMania! Don't you dare be sour. Clap for your WrestleMania hosts and feel the power. It was the New Day. Yes, it was. And the New Day was daring not to be sour, coming out in a Final Fantasy-themed start to the show. The New Day would do a great job hosting, not getting in the way of the action, leaving us with plenty of hilarity throughout the night, in addition to some surprises. The first official match on the card was AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon. This was a hard-hitting opening that saw Shane go coast to coast and pillar to post, crash through announce tables, and he threw more rabbit punches than Bugs Bunny versus the Crusher in their classic meeting way back in WrestleMania 2. AJ would prove phenomenal with a big win over SmackDown's commissioner, making a match that not only a lot of people seemed interested in, Corey Graves, not interested, but was an exciting start to the show. Next was a rivalry as personal as it gets. As former best friends, despite claims to the controversy, Kevin Owens would attempt to turn the lights out on Y2J, Chris Jericho. The match was high impact, without a punch being pulled as the blood was boiling and the fists flew during this clash of Canadians. Owens was fingertips away from his opportunity at revenge against former friend Jericho after a codebreaker left him laying with only enough strength to get a single finger on the rope to break up the pinfall and create a timeless WrestleMania moment. It was this ring awareness and resilience that would lead the patented pop-up powerbomber on the apron to Chris Jericho and ultimately mean the Ayatollah of Rock and Roll's defeat at the hands of KO, who is your new United States champion. The Women's Revolution. It rolled on through WrestleMania with the Raw Women's title on the line between Nia Jax, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, and everybody's kid sister, Bayley, in a fatal four-way match for the ages. Bayley would pull off a decisive, clean win, pinning Charlotte Flair to signify a title victory free of any controversy that had Charlotte even believing in Bayley from the look on her face, and Bayley living the hug life on top of the mountain of the women's division. Next on the card was the tag team triple threat ladder match between Gallows and Anderson, Sheamus and Cesaro, and Enzo and Cass. And what experts thought would be a boyhood dream coming true for Enzo and Cass, the night would take a different path because of a simple twist of fate. The surprise return of the Hardy Boys would lead to over 75,000 plus fans to leap out of their chairs as Team Extreme would make a triumphant return to the WWE in the match they made famous. They would even recapture the WWE Tag Team Gold and delete the competition in one of the most spectacular matches of the night, which saw Jeff Hardy leap off of a 20-foot ladder as Matt ascended to the titles and, upon grabbing them, declaring the title reign of the club to be over. Next up, John Cena would have a WrestleMania rematch with The Miz, but this time in mixed tag fashion with their significant others involved. Just how significant? After delivering their signature moves in stereo, John Cena and Nikki Bella would be victorious over The Miz and Maurice, but it was True Love that was the victor this night, as John Cena would add a 6th move of doom to his 5-move repertoire by dropping a knee. The Superman of wrestling would drop that knee to the mat in a sincere moment of reality in which he would ask his longtime girlfriend Nikki to marry him. All jokes aside, this reporter was moved because for Cena, a guy whose life is wrestling, I'm happy that this special moment was a part of wrestling. With Cena nipping at the heels of beating Ric Flair's championship reign, it's good to see he has set plans in motion for his post-in-ring career. It's going to be several divorces before Cena can match the record that Flair has set in that category as well, which Flair has set at 4. A familiar sign to the Nature Boy, which means if Cena is to topple this record, he'd have to do it in 5. Next up, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, also known as Triple H, also known as the Trips, also known as the Cerebral Assassin, also known as Vince's favorite son, also known as the Creator, also known as simply what his kids refer to him as, the Game, would save the biggest Mania entrance for himself as he rode down a custom motorcycle flanked by Stephanie McMahon and a police motorcade. He wouldn't be outshined by Seth freaking Rollins, who would come out with a torch that he claims is passed gloriously as golden as a garage sale at Gold Dust. He was dressed. The Kingslayer would successfully commit the regicide he sought as he toppled Triple H, finally delivering a richly deserved pedigree to the King of Kings. We would make our way to the main event portions of the night with WWE title match between Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. Bray would use all manner of mind games on Randall as he would implement giant projected visuals of maggots, bloodworms, and roaches onto the canvas to try and get in the head of the #1 contender. But Randy wasn't all shook up as he delivered a devastating RKO from exactly where you would expect to get one, in the center of the ring. This puts Randy in the teens of title victories, which means we may soon see Cena versus Orton to take the all-time record in the coming years, making Cena versus Orton number 238 look promising as a standout above the previous 237 encounters. After we made our way to the biggest draw of the evening between the Beast, Brock Lesnar... What's that? Am I saying that correctly? No? How is it pronounced? Is it Bork? Bork Laser? No? What? Oh, okay. All right, I got it. We saw the main event draw of it between Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg for the WWE Universal Championship. In a hard-hitting match featuring a new match move record between these two behemoths, it totaled in 4. 4 impressive moves, a repetitive delivery of spears, versus the attack of German suplexes as Brock would bring Goldberg to Suplex City, which would culminate in Brock Lesnar kicking out of Mr. Goldberg's other move, the jackhammer, which would lead to Brock delivering his other move, the F5. Brock would capture the WWE Universal title, and with the Beast in firm possession of the gold for the first time in years, it begs the question, who's next now? A slight cool down before the final match of the evening was the SmackDown Women's Fatal 5-Way, or was it 6? This reporter seems to have lost track because there was a surprise entrance in this fast-paced match of action, and we could see the returning Naomi ensure that the reigning champ, Alexa Bliss, felt the glow as she sinked in a brutal submission, trapping the arms of my not-so-secret crush and causing her to tap out, losing her title to the hometown Orlando girl Naomi, who you may forget used to be a Funkadactyl. Never give up on your dreams, kids. It doesn't matter where you are now, you can always reach the pinnacle of any mountain. This reporter is told there was a musical performance by Mr. Worldwide Pitbull and Flo Rida, apparently, but this reporter must have missed it while preparing nachos, which instead I will report on now. El Nuzador's super secret identity nachos consist of cheese, peppers, onions, and salsa, toasted to perfection and served with a tag team of guacamole and lime. Unmask the flavor. Now, on to the main event of the show, which delivered on the tagline of the ultimate thrill ride. The roller coaster of emotion left fans dizzy, nauseous, and with tears in their eyes as The Undertaker would fall for only the second time in WrestleMania history to one Roman Reigns. It was wildly speculated that this match would be the dead man's last ride, and he did prove this rumor to be true, when upon exiting the arena, The Undertaker removed his gloves, his trench coat, and signature hat, folding them and leaving them behind in the center of the ring. Next year, when WrestleMania emanates from New Orleans, you can bet on the fact that the Phenom will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And that's the bottom line for this WrestleMania 33, also known as one wedding and a funeral. The pageantry, the action, the emotion, that's real, and it's still real to me, damn it. Fans can look forward to the WrestleMania fallout on the most exciting Monday of the year, as the post-Raw WrestleMania is a blockbuster which starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Wait, that specifically means now, actually. I believe that's what that means. So, well, this is El Nuzador saying that I've got to go. With all of the scoop slams and keeping your headlines in a headlock. This is El Nuzador tagging out. Adios, muchachos.